So Erik, it's been an amazing journey through your portfolio and kind of like learning how you work and the inspiration behind it. And I think this image you were just telling me over the break, kind of everything that went into it, and I think it very well sums up your devotion to creating a great image without compromise.
Thank you.
It's sick.
Part of the same campaign as the picture we just talked about. So again, it's for Genentech. And it's about exploring and finding new ways to treat cancer. So they wanted this, the concept was this cave, and of course these are the explorers and the metaphors of that. And they wanted to do this picture like this, but what they wanted was a green lush cave, and that doesn't exist really. All the caves are underground, it's not light there, so things doesn't grow too well. So we did a lot of research, Brazil, New Zealand, and in the US to find caves, and we couldn't really find any. So we ended up doing a combination of two places, Alabama and Hawaii. So the cave is from Alabama, and then we brought in all this grass you see on this side. We brought in boxes.
You physically carried it into the cave.
We did, hiked it up the mountain 45 minutes. And you get that stuff from movie houses. You know, all this moss is real moss. This stuff here is fake plastic, and we put that on there and decorated this side. And then we went to Hawaii and we shot the waterfall and these single pieces here and on the side here, and combined the things in post. And that's how this image came about.
Wow, that's incredible. So everything in the foreground here is this is in the in the continental United States, and then basically looking through the cave, this was all in Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah. These grass pieces here is from Hawaii too, but the cave is in Alabama.
Wow, incredible. Matching the lighting and the colors, I mean, how different, let's say this had a blue color cast on it or something, how different were they, and how do you go about achieving that balance?
So two things to this, right? When we set out to find the things to match through our location scouts, I told the scouts that I wanted to find a waterfall, but the waterfall had to be a smaller one. It can't be a waterfall off a wall. It has to be a waterfall that's sitting in a sort of cave or circular sort of piece like this, so that it has the feel of being part of a cave. So for me, it was more about shapes, and then having this light spilling through here from the original frame, and then having the light spill from the top of the waterfall. It was just shot on an overcast day, so that you get the same flat light spilling in here on the background as well. So that's the pieces.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the whole series came out great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I seem to get that sense over and over in your work of a strong individual in an incredible location. We see it over and over again. But this last image that we're going to talk about before we get into some more questions is an athletic team, and this is the only type of this work that I've seen in your portfolio. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of the concept behind these two images? I'm guessing it's the same team, and how you did them technically.
Sure. So they are a little different, and this is one of the cases where you get to work with an art director or a group of people that comes back to you, and it sort of evolves a little bit. So this is the Nike basketball team, not Nike, the Berkeley basketball team, and they're sponsored by Nike.
Okay.
So every year we did, 4 years, I did these team posters and team pictures for them. So the first were more in my style. We started out with them being in a library at the school, and it was a little bit more in the tones that I did, and then as we worked, but then I got hired again, it sort of pushed itself this way. Backgrounds shot on their own, and then going onto the court actually, shooting the guys.
So they were all shot indoors on location, indoors on the court.
Yeah, and cut out and put into the backgrounds.
And as far as, so we have a bit of a greenish tone here, a bit of a bluish tone, matching the tones between the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. How much work goes into that? Is that mostly changing curves?
Yeah. So I do all my work in curves pretty much. I'm not a crazy technical retoucher. I use 4 basic layers. It's curves for contrast and color. I use hue saturation and sometimes a color fill layer. And that's it for 99.9% of my work. Sometimes I can use selective color, but rarely. Yeah, it's very, very simple.
Yeah. So
very
it's
simple. So here it's really just the background is what it is. You know, it's greener tones, desaturated, and then you, as you said, you spill some of that tonality into this part so that it feels like they're there. I mean, it's not just light that reflects, but color also reflects.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if I had a yellow shirt on sitting next to you, you would see that yellow spill on your white shirt. So that has to be reflected in them too. So you see, as you mentioned, greener tones in the highlights here and bluer, more magenta tones in the highlight here.
Yeah, I think they came out, you know, really great, and they still have a very unique feel to them, and they still feel like your work, which is, you know, again, I think something that's you've done over and over again and done it well. So it's awesome,
Thank
man.
you. Thank
awesome
you.
book. And yeah, we're going to show some clips from the book, and so you guys can kind of see and everything that we've talked about. But yeah, we have a few questions, just a couple more. Oh, actually, you know what? I want to talk about this. These, tell me about these. They're just little takeaways.
Yeah. So these are they're actually made by my agent. So this is Von Hannigan, who represents me on the back. But they come with my portfolios, and they send them out in batches. So if they do a promo piece, they send it out with all the photographers in the same format. For a second there, I thought they were mine because I have a similar format which I've been using for my marketing consistently over the past, I think it goes back 6 years now, where I 4 times a year has been sending out these postcards. The only thing that's different for me, I don't have this, and I have another picture on the back. Let me see if there's, no. But we could show some of that. I have some slides of it.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Maybe we could put that on the screen as well.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about, we do want to talk about marketing, and I think this is a perfect segue. So you send these out. How many get sent out and how often?
So we do a print run of 10,000 of these. We send out about
10,000.
And we send out about 8.5 of those. The rest ends up like this in the portfolio and giveaways every quarter, 4 times a year.
Wow.
And I've been consistent with that for that period of time.
I mean, that's incredible.
I don't know if it's incredible. It's, I mean, marketing is a big part of it. I think we have to treat ourselves, you know, as a product in a way, brought to the marketplace, and people don't do that, you know, with placing one ad. They do it with putting the message out there at a consistent pace over and over and over again. So I've been trying to be fairly smart with my marketing in that manner, and stuck to one format so that it's recognizable, not just sort of the type of imagery I use, but also the design of it, so that it's a branding around it basically, so that people get it, they can recognize the format and all that stuff, so they see that it's from Erik Almas.
Wow, incredible. And so how many years have you been doing this?
I think 6, 7 years, yeah.
6 or 7 years,
yeah.
Times 10,000
postcards
quarterly. So that's 40,000 a year times 6.
Yeah.
So that's 240, 250,000 of these you've printed out and sent over across the United States and the world.
Yep.
That's incredible. So if you guys out there, you know, you've shown your website to 10 people, and you're competing against Erik, who's 250,000 here. Maybe, yeah, it just shows the importance of getting out there and really what that actually means.
It's so important. As we mentioned before, nobody's gonna seek you out anymore because they're so bombarded with photographers and imagery. They will choose one of the plenty that's in front of them. So you have to make sure that you're among those that they think of when assignments come up. And I feel that's done through consistency.
So tell me a little bit about focus, because I know you are very focused in your images. You're not a photographer who's mostly about marketing and just happens to take pictures. But tell me a little bit about like your time breakdown, or maybe you'd say 30% of my efforts are in marketing, 70% are in photos. What does that breakdown look like for you?
Oh, I don't know. No, I'm a photographer 100%. But you also have to make a living at it, and with that comes business responsibilities, and you owe it to yourself and your pictures, I think, to get them out there somehow. And yeah, there's a process to that. Now, I mean, I'm in a place where I have great help and a staff that deals with most of this, so my process is to craft the pictures and choose which ones we use, and then they will take it from there. But I mean, I started out sending out these before I employed anyone, and I still stuck to it and did it. It's not that much effort in doing these cards, really. What you do is purchase a list, which you could do from several sources, and send a picture off to the printer, and you send that list to the printer too, and you don't really see it. The printer do what's called mail fulfillment, so they print it and print the address on it, and out it goes.
Wow.
And I mean, I think for 1,000 cards, it's $80. So it's not a huge cost.
Wow.
The
okay.
cost is actually in shipping.
In the shipping.
So now I do these oversized cards that's bigger. The very first I did was smaller in this size because of the shipping cost. So I think you could send these out for, I don't know, 11 cents or something. And you could reach a pretty big audience. And I mean, I have in this DVD I made, I have all this step-by-step guides on how to do your marketing. But essentially what you do is you start with who you want to work for as one, as in aspirations of clients. Number two is who uses your work. So it's not always the same, right? I could say these are the clients that use the kind of photography I do, but then there's my clients that I aspire to work for.
Right, right.
Which is aspirational. So my work might not be ready for the ones up there yet. So I market to those two kinds of people. So identify for yourself what that is, and then start marketing to those people through, I mean, the most inexpensive ways would be email, and then postcards. And you don't have to do 10,000. I mean, I do a broader marketing, yeah, because it's, for me, I want to reach a lot of people, but there's levels to that too. There's emails that goes out to a lot of people, then there's these postcards that's a little bit more targeted. And then there's specialty pieces, like the one we just talked about, where I did a couple of thousand. And then there's the handwritten notes that goes out, right? Postcards that goes out from our office to the people I really, really want to work for. So there's just a multi-tiered, multi-level, and some of these cost dollars and others are very inexpensive. So, and then there's the social media part of it, which is huge, but also
right.
A very effective way of reaching people. I just talked to an art buyer, and then they spend a lot of time on blogs searching for what's current and what's cool, and being a part of that is more and more important.
Yeah, chasing the cool, right?
Well, it's not about chasing the cool, but trying to get some exposure to your work. So, I mean, I'm not good enough in doing that, but some of my pictures have been picked up by blogs that then have led to work. Some of my best pictures have come from an art director in London seeing my pictures on the blog saying, I want to work with this guy, and catering a campaign to my pictures. So
it can happen. You just don't count on that happening.
As I said, I'm not good enough at it, but it should be a part of your marketing effort, right? To get your pictures out to social media for sure.
Mm-hmm. So your push in social media, you know, kind of, what's your impact been with the general public? You know, people like me, people like, you know, a normal photographer who are not art buyers. How do you see them play a role in you as a photographer and kind of your business and moving forward?
So there's two things to that, I think. For me, it's kind of a fun thing. When Facebook first started, right, you didn't really know where it was going. You sort of started putting some pictures up and people liked you, and oh, that's kind of fun. What was interesting to me right off the bat was the likes and what people responded to. And often that wasn't quite the pictures that were my favorites.
Right.
So it's a really interesting way of getting feedback on what you're doing, just from that sort of perspective. I mean, it's just enjoyable and fun to be able to share. So that's that part of it. I mean, we're all drawn to social media because we're curious about what other people do.
Right.
So that being a part of that is cool, I think, for that purpose. For a business side, it's really an unobtrusive way to get in front of your clients. A lot of the art directors I work with, a lot of the art buyers I work with, they now follow my work on Facebook. And I mean, they get to see my work in a very unobtrusive manner and follow sort of the progression of what I do, and some thoughts that's really more intimate than just a postcard or an email. So establishing that, and also, you know, when you get some numbers behind it, I think that is impressive to clients too in some ways, you know, that this guy's actually respected, you know, as a photographer by a wider audience. So I think it's important. How important is hard to measure, but you know, you want to stay in what they call top of mind awareness, right, for the people that's out there that hires photographers. And a great way to do so is to have an audience on Facebook. And I mean, it's a time suck. You know, you got to make sure that you post things that's consistent, so you don't go away forever, and then you got to post something that's interesting. And it's a balance there, how much effort you put into it, and how much you want to. Yeah, it's just a balance, but I do think it's valuable. It's hard to measure it sort of in monetary return. Right. But, it should definitely be a part of your marketing package. You can't just say, oh, I'm only going to do Facebook. I don't think that's going to get you anywhere. There's so many places now to reach people, and you have to sort of figure out what's more effective for you. If it comes to the dollars, you know, what budget you have, or, you know, who you want to reach and all that stuff. So it's a blend of things.
Yeah, and with that blend, I mean, have there been some avenues that you've gone down and then decided maybe these were not as worth it? So maybe you've stopped doing, you know, some channels like magazine advertising, and you were like, yeah, that's not really paying off.
No, I'd like to say yes, but you know, it's keep on just snowballing. Like,
okay.
When I had money to do this, I did that, and when I had money to do this, I did that, and then you sort of just add on to it. The one thing that I walked away from was workbook, which I did, and now I don't do, which is a source book that go out. I felt they got a little dated, and sort of lost their luster a little bit. And what I do now is, for the source book, is Adage and the book.
Okay.
So yeah, I think there's again consistency, right? I want to continue what I do, and then where I sort of add and detract is the specialty pieces.
Right.
Yeah, that's how. I mean, it's
perfect.
We could talk here for hours and hours about marketing.
Exactly.
And I'm passionate about it, and I think the photographers have to be smart about it. It's so competitive out there now that you want to make sure to get noticed in that bombardment of imagery.
Right, and we're, you know, as a photographer, a commercial photographer, I mean, you have people who help you, but in many ways you're the marketer, you know, you're the person who's creating the content, you're the person who does the bids and the estimate. I mean, with help, but it's a whole company basically.
Yeah. Well, so I say I have help, but I did it on my own, right, when I started out. All that stuff. So it's
doable on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no excuse saying
you worked like 10 hours a week though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly 10. Yeah.
That was my limit always.
The key to success. Yeah. Work exactly 10 hours.
But when you're a photographer, you don't really work, right?
Right.
I mean, it's tedious sometimes to do the billings and go through that stuff, but I thrive on that at times too. It's exciting to start a business and be your own boss and live at your own time schedule, so to speak. So I don't think us photographers should be afraid of that business aspect. We should say, this is the life I've chosen and this is a part of it, and you got to choose to embrace it, because if you fight it all the time, you're not going to get anywhere. It's not servicing you well. So I think you, from the get-go, if you choose to be a commercial photographer like I chose, just say, all right, I'm going to embrace the other part of it, and just stick to it. It just has to get done.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. That's funny. Yeah.
So we're going to do some rapid fire now.
Rapid fire.
I'm going to ask you, I got a bunch of questions here. Some are from me and some are from other people on Facebook.
All right.
And we're just going to go through them quick. And
all right, I'll do my best.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
a lot of questions. You know?
All right. The trick is to not think. Just blurt it out. So first question we have is, what is your favorite part of being a professional photographer?
To take pictures. I mean, it's such a gratifying, I know you said fast, but there's a lot of favorite things about it. I mean, it's so gratifying to have your hobby as your living, right? But then the adventures I've been taken on, like the pictures we saw going to Alabama, climbing down a cave, flying to Hawaii, shooting another piece for it. It's the people you meet and the places you get to see and the things you get to encounter because of the camera you have in your hands is extraordinary, really. I said it before, I feel like the luckiest guy I know. I have this friend who's in the VC business, right? Does really well, and he just looks at me and he goes, "You, Erik, have the best income to life ratio of anyone I know." Right? He makes a lot more, but he's not out there traveling, seeing great things, you know, breathing fresh air. It's a blessing, really, to be a photographer.
Your cameras become your passport to a greater world.
Right? They really do. They really do.
Very cool. And I've experienced the same thing. I've had a lot of fun in my life because of my camera.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of things I shouldn't have done, probably.
It's it's just extraordinary, really. We were shooting at LAX the other day, right, for American Airlines, and the guy that sort of deals with it says, "Oh man, have you seen the space shuttle? The space shuttle is around the corner." So here we are, like in the car, and we all get to see the space shuttle, like right up front and center.
Very cool.
It's small things like that. It's just amazing.
They let you fly it too, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, oh, this is the photographer.
Yeah. Show your photographer badge. It's cool. It's cool. I'm a photographer.
Yeah. Yeah, not that far, but. Hey, I've been in the cockpit of a 777. You know,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, right. So that's again with the camera.
Totally.
So
very cool. Well, that's
a lot of favorite parts to be a photographer.
That's a really good one. The next we have is you can answer this as quick or as long as you want. What is something you wish you could change about the industry?
Oh wow. So in some ways, you know, I'm so blessed with my life and being a commercial photographer. A lot of people just bitch about, you know, oh, clients this, clients that, but, you know, they have given me such an extraordinary life. I'm just nothing but grateful for advertising photography. If I were to change something, I would think that sometimes clients get really fearful of stepping outside the box and doing really great things. You know, they don't want to stand out because they have to answer to a boss, and they don't really know what they're going to say, how they're going to respond to it, so they always choose the safest sort of route. And the safest is often the dullest. So if I were to put one wish out there, you know, for my work, I would say that people should be braver in their advertising.
Take some chances.
Yeah.
I see it in Europe, and, you know, being from Europe, I mean, they've got the advertising in Europe and South America is so much better than we have here. Well, I say that.
Yeah, no.
I don't mean that as a.
No. I see what everyone agrees with that. You know, that there's more humor, there's riskier imagery maybe coming out of other places. But that's sort of the environment we're in. I think part of that is it's perfectly fine with me. America is such a melting pot. And there's so many different cultures, and it has a history, right, where you have to be cautious of who you offend or, you know, what you say. Europe is more singular in its culture, if you go country by country. So it's easier for them to play off of things that's maybe not the norm and all that stuff.
That's very interesting.
In the US, you have to be a little bit more cautious, you know, given the history and all the different cultures that's melted into one here. So I see the root of that, so I'm not so, I'm super happy being here. I feel like I come into the American dream, right? Come to this country and get to do what I want. And so anyway, another long explanation. I'm not going to fire it off now.
Yeah, you're fired. Get out of here. All right. The next question is from someone on Facebook. We asked you guys on Facebook what questions you might have for Erik. And this is from Emil Nystrom. You're...
Yeah, a Swedish guy probably, Emil Nyström.
You said it much better than I can. How many years did it take to get to the big leagues?
Well, we mentioned it. Yeah, I came here to study, so 4 years of school, assisted for 2.5 years. And then my work after that time was fairly consistent. And I would get one big job here and there. But if you get, one of my early clients were Harley Davidson, the US Postal Service, and it's big names, but when you have one job like that every other month, it doesn't take you anywhere, right? I was still as much in debt and all that stuff, you know, from school. So, so to enter the big league once maybe took me 1.5 years after that, but to be at it consistently, to be on people's radar so that, you know, I would consistently shoot, probably took another 3-4 years. So yeah, add that up, about 10 years.
And that's a great point, is that, you know, you're not...
Depends on where he is at, though. I mean, that was from me taking one darkroom course and then being on the ski slopes, snapping pictures and reading a couple of books. So my knowledge there wasn't very extensive at all. I mean, he might be in a different place where he has a different portfolio, has a decent portfolio and all that stuff. So my journey to get there was about 10 years. Yeah. But everyone's different, though, right? So.
Right. Well, 10 years makes sense. I mean, 10 years, 10,000 hours, people say.
Right.
I mean, that's the amount of time that it takes to really, you know,
get proficient at it.
Yeah. So, yeah, that makes total sense. And thank you guys for your questions on Facebook. The next question is another 10 years question. Where do you see the industry going in 10 years? With a sub-question, the importance and growth of CGI and how photography mixes with CGI.
Wow. So let's start with the first one. So I can't tell you where it's going to be in 10 years. It's actually a really interesting time. But our culture is getting more and more visual. It's less and less about the words and more about what we see. And I think that's beautifully manifested when Facebook buys Instagram. They have all these data and they see that pictures is what drives Facebook. And they don't want to be left out of that, so they buy Instagram. So our culture is getting so much more visual, so there's going to be an extraordinary place for pictures for the unforeseeable future, I think. Now, within that though, the mediums are changing. So do we then, where's advertising all this? Is it all going to be social media? Will it all depend on each other's pictures, or how we as photographers fit in there? I don't know. But there's definitely a strong place for us. Because in all that sort of imagery that we just randomly post, there's a place for imagery that rises above all that.
Right.
That has something unique about them. So 10 years from now, I think there's going to be a great place for photographers. But how we will get paid and how that model is definitely going to change. I was on that panel, as we talked about prior, at Photo Expo Plus, and part of that was an art director. And he said, he got a similar question. He said, I don't really know where things are going. All I know is that things are changing really fast. The old ad agencies on Madison Avenue was sort of based on TV advertising, right? Creating good ideas that went on to TV to blast it out to the people. And that top and bottom down marketing has now changed from being more of a bottom up instead. Mm-hmm. So the advertising agency model is changing, and as that's changing, so will the way people are hiring photographers. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a complex time, but there's definitely a need for good photographers as we are getting more and more visual.
Yeah, and I agree with you what you said. You know, with more pictures being taken, that doesn't mean that more better pictures are being taken, and I think the cream will always rise.
Yeah, for sure. But I love, though, in all these new pictures and new photographers coming up, is that it makes me work harder, better at my pictures. So there's a challenge there. You know, we all, I guess, encourage each other in our progress as photographers. So I think it's a great future for photography that way, creatively.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so many people on Phlearn are just, they're so good. It's
Right?
it really does blow me away.
Yep.
Yeah, people submit their images all the time, and I'm just like, God, there's so much
some
talent out there.
I know. Sometimes I'm thinking, why the hell would people hire me? You know, there's so much amazing work out there, and you see that through all these blogs and all these places every day. So it's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
So how about CG? What do you CGI? What do you think about that?
So I got strong opinions about that too. I think us photographers should be unafraid of CGI. I think we have to partner with people that's good at it and sort of embrace it to make something that's our own. There's some CGI pictures in here, and I find that, I mean, there's some exceptions to this, but most CGI people are technicians, right? They're really proficient at the software. Us photographers that's outside are the ones that know light and how it falls and how it shapes, and I think there need to be a symbiosis there. So I would say to all photographers that's curious about it, you could learn to do it on your own, but it's sort of a separate craft. I think you should spend your 10,000 hours or 10 years being a photographer, and then the CGI people would spend their time, and then you should direct and guide and use CGI to help your pictures. I think CGI is not as strong on its own. It's better when used with real imagery. So there's definitely a place definitely a place for morphing those together. So it's nothing to be afraid of. I think we should embrace it actually and say, I'm going to make this a part of our toolkit, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because it's a chance to bring in more eyes to a project. You know, a person who has a background in CG, they might see something a little bit differently than the photographer, and sometimes you might tell them to shut up, but other times it might be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I did this picture that was based on a dream my girlfriend had, and we looked for, it was about a staircase coming down, and we looked for location and staircases, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and ended up calling a friend of mine and said, hey, can you do something like this CGI? And he said, this project sounds amazing. And we just pulled a bunch of reference pictures, and they helped us create this dream world, right, that wasn't possible otherwise.
Really incredible. But those reference images, I mean, those photographs, it took all that prior knowledge to come together and create the final.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
CGI is amazing. I mean, sky's the limit there. You could, as I said, there wasn't anything real to create that picture. So now you can take your ideas and your imagination and let it go crazy and create whatever you want. I mean, the movie industry has taken that to the extreme, right? Where there's amazing, amazing stuff being done. And I mean, the same worlds can be created for still photography. So
yeah, it's a cool time. I think it's really exciting. And
I think us photographers, you know, should take the driver's seat there and spearhead it in some ways, and not be left behind thinking, oh, they're going to compete with us. No, we should be a part of it, you know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. All right, CG guys, let's do this.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of, you know, several examples, like Mike Campau has, you know, done some great work with Tim Tatter lately, and you know, they did the Future of Sports series, and I think that partnership just came out really strong for the both of them.
I haven't seen those pictures, but that's the way it should be, right? Tim's work has that futuristic feel, so he's the perfect guy to sort of embrace that and bring it into his pictures.
Yeah, very cool. So on the CG, can you walk us through your whole creative process? Not necessarily with CG, just you know, everywhere from concept to completion.
Oh, for pictures?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Man, that's another 3 hours.
I know.
Quick. I mean, the importance is the idea. I think too much emphasis is out there on tools. The most important thing for a picture is what you want to take a picture of. So you have to start there. And inspiration comes from different places, as we talked about. So find what you want to put into your pictures, what content you want to use, and then photograph that. So that's number one idea. Basically, I have put together this 4-step thing, right? This put together a shooting schedule, basically, where your first week come up with the idea.
Okay.
The second week you produce the idea, meaning getting the storytelling elements, find a location, model, whatever props you want. The fourth you execute, you shoot the thing the third you shoot the thing, and the fourth you do the post-production. So I guess, how you create a picture is that you come up with an idea, you execute the idea, or you produce all the pieces for it, you execute it, and then you put it together. And within that, of course, you have to bake your sensitivities and your emotions.
There's a lot that goes into each one of those steps.
Yeah, and then you push it out there. And then you market it.
The final, get out there. Here, everyone's, look at this.
I think, I would just want to say one thing about it in the process of making pictures. I feel a lot of people start at the end, which is the post-production. Photoshop is our darkroom tool, and it's really important. But I feel a lot of people sit there and say, how can I create it on the computer? But that's not where it starts, right? It has to start with content. What do you want to take pictures of? And that's where you should spend your time. To mold the idea and the color value and the palette and all those things so you want the picture to be like that, you set up front, and that's where you spend your time. So that should be to the root of it, right? Then when you know what that is, you can select your tools, which doesn't have to be super fancy or expensive. If the content is good, the picture is good, then you put the elements together, you shoot it, and again, post-production after.
Bring it all together, yeah.
And I think post-production, it's, again, my starting point for post is, how can I make the picture more like I felt when I was there taking it, and apply sort of that vision to it, and fulfill what the idea was rather than making it after.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I mean, you have a feeling at that image, or at that moment when you're taking the picture, the feeling that you have when you're creating the concept, and making sure that the post-production mirrors that.
Yeah. That said, though, when you sit down and do the post, you have to infuse what you feel like then too. And
right.
Like we talked about, I change my pictures, as time passes and how I feel. So there's definitely insertion of yourself and what you feel like at the moment you make the pictures as well. In Photoshop, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've looked at some of my pictures, maybe 6 months later, be like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, that happens for sure.
But it's good. I mean, if you can look back at old work and realize that you're better than that now, it means you've gotten better.
Oh, it's actually an extraordinary thing you're saying there, because a lot of people have this crazy frustration, right, of how do we make it? How long does it take? It's what's amazing for me. After school, I got invited by the department director at the academy to come in and talk about my pictures and life after school, after I graduated. And I've done so now for, it's been, how long since I graduated? 14 years? Twice a year I've gone back, every semester.
Wow.
And in the beginning it was flattering. I was like, okay, yeah, cool, I can go and talk about what I've done. But what I realized is that when I sat there twice a year and talked about my pictures, I actually realized that, hey, I am getting better. I am doing new things. And it became like this progression line for me. So even though it was frustrating and I didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere work-wise, I actually got that timeline, that reassessment of actually I am getting better.
That is very cool.
Decent. And
you almost took inventory on your own life. It forced you to do it a couple times a year.
And it started out as a sort of a thing that was, oh, this is cool to be asked to come back and talk. And then now still when the department director calls, I'm like, of course I want to. And he's so grateful. But in some ways it's selfish to me, because I get, again, to see what I've accomplished, since last time. And it's, I think it's really healthy for everyone.
Yeah, it's easy to get bogged down in the feeling like, that you've had bad work. But as long as you're getting better, I think that's what people should focus on, the growth and the getting better, and not, focus on the journey, not the destination.
Yep.
That's what,
Another short answer.
Yeah, the short answer. I'm just trying to recap again so I can absorb it just as well as I can. So let's talk about personal versus client work just briefly. Your images, I know a lot of photographers say that their personal work tends to be their favorite work and the best work, and their client work tends to be a little bit more not as interesting. What do you feel about that with your personal work versus your client work?
So both. Sometimes I feel like I do amazing client work that's really intriguing. Other times it's less interesting. I feel I have such a distinct style so that people don't come to me to shoot something that I don't. So it's not like I get asked to shoot something that's truly, to me, boring. So no, I don't have that super experience of my personal work being way more exciting than the commercial work, because in some ways they are mirroring each other. As I mentioned, the personal work is where I push myself forward, and the commercial work is where I sort of repeat myself being asked to apply sort of something I'd done before, my aesthetic, to their concepts. So I feel like I'm kind of lucky that way, that I get to execute commercially things that I'm kind of passionate about. I mean, these pictures here, those on the right is more successful than the ones on the left, but they are done for a commercial client, and I'm truly proud of those. You know, I feel there's strong images reflecting my aesthetic. So.
And you can bring your voice to that to the projects.
Yeah.
And they're looking for your voice after all. I mean, that's why they hire you.
Yeah. So again, it's a lot of fun when they say, this is our idea and this is how we want to execute it, and we want you to apply your aesthetic to that. You know,
right.
So, the difference is, you know, that they're not my ideas, and not to say that they're bad in any way, but as we talked about, bringing something from here onto paper, you're more connected, or should at least be more connected to your personal work.
To your own work.
Yeah.
It has the possibility of meaning something. And that's interesting. Do you have to force yourself to find meaning in concepts that aren't necessarily yours?
Yeah, and I think that's super important. I mean, I talk about this in these lectures that I give, that I always try to find a viewpoint that's honest to me within the commercial assignments that I do. And if not, it wouldn't feel real, or, you know, I can't just show up and say, oh, I'm going to execute this, and that's it. I got to find out, again, using reverse memories, how do I relate to this, and how could I make this my own somehow? And one great example is this healthcare assignment that I did with these people getting out of bed, and this disease called fibromyalgia makes people not being able to rise and be active. And in that case, you know, it's fairly easy for me to apply sort of the Nike idea of just do it, right? Everyone has this procrastination feel at times, and you want to try to accomplish more things. And when I take that perspective of me wanting to accomplish things and get up and do things, and apply that energy to a concept that might not inherently be so interesting, suddenly I have a viewpoint that's honest, and I can bring that to the pictures, and I think it shows. You know, my enthusiasm changes, and I sort of try to bring that into the photography, even though it's for clients.
Yeah, well, that's perfect. So finding that voice, I mean, is it harder to do with clients than it is for your personal work?
Good question. No, there's always something that you can relate to within the pictures. And I mean, your aspirations and dreams and the stuff that you do for your personal work might be easier relatable, and you might be more passionate about it. So yeah, maybe it's harder, but it's still, for me, absolutely necessary to do, so that I could apply myself honestly, you know, to the projects I do for my clients.
And you probably get better at doing it over time, right? Maybe it's a learned...
Yeah. And also, you know, for some assignments, they want to do this big landscapes that I do with a person in it, but then they also want some portraits. And before, you know, it has been for me to, okay, we're going to shoot the portraits too. Right. But now I'm looking just as much forward to do these portraits, because, hey, I know it's just a portrait on white, but here's a chance for me to practice, right?
And bring that emotional connection that you want.
So, I mean, there's always,
There's a challenge there if you're willing to see it.
yeah,
right?
exactly. There's always a way you can apply yourself and your emotions to clients' work.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's great advice, because it can seem, any project out there could be boring, but it's up to you to make it interesting and care about it.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, very, very cool. So let's, talking about your image, we're going to switch focus a little bit. Your lighting, just tell us a little about your lighting. Are you more prone to simple lighting or complex lighting?
Simple lighting, I think, for sure. Depends a little bit on the picture, of course, and the setting and the mood that you want to convey, but most of my work is all natural light. I shape it often on people with reflectors. Sometimes if it's interior or nighttime, I apply a strobe. If it's really sort of a foggy scene and you want to add a little bit of shape to a person's face, for instance, I might use a strobe, but I like natural light. It's what I could see, and I could relate to that better. So that's what I do. Again, I think it's for a lot of photographers starting out, you know, it's like, oh, all these strobes, and how do I do it? And they think they need a lot of equipment, but you don't. I mean, a lot of us, or all of us really, you're attracted to a certain set of things that's innately in us. And part of that is light. So you just got to identify to yourself what light qualities you're drawn to. And when you have established that, then go ahead and shoot it. And for me, that's often low raking light and that kind of stuff. So I wait till the afternoon or early mornings to take pictures. And that is gratifying for me.
The majority of your light seems to be almost like a fill light, rather than using natural light as a key.
And then I bounce some light back into it.
Bounce some light back in for fill.
Yeah. It's very simple. I mean, we could show some lighting diagrams maybe, but.
Yeah, so you're not using 6 lights, you know, you're using 1 or 2 lights for the majority of your images.
Yep. And
well, that's good news for everyone out there who doesn't want to spend a ton of money and, you know, buy all these lights and all this big equipment.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I have my favorite tools, which is called Scrim Gems. Which is 2 6x6 frames, and onto those frames you could stick a silk, a white, silver reflector, or gold, by Velcro, and just strip them on there, or a black surface. And those fold together, and I'll travel with them, and they're super, super handy. I mean, they're, for what they are, just a plastic frame and some Velcro, you know, they're expensive, but I had these things forever, and I love them. And they're the 2 primary shaping tools that I use.
Wow. So you can use like a diffusion panel in the back to maybe a stop less light, and then a bounce to kind of equal out that difference between light.
Yeah.
Very cool. So yeah, using, I mean, the scrims, I mean, that's really great, you know, to not have to rely on strobes.
For all my work that I did until I got sort of established and more curious about the fashion element of photography, was all shot natural light. So I don't think you need to worry about strobe to get a career started. That is if you're aesthetic, though. If you're drawn to the things that's more natural, because I say, oh, I didn't use strobes to start out with, doesn't mean that you shouldn't either.
Right. I love strobes. I'm not abandoning them.
Yeah, exactly, right? But that's your aesthetic. So if you're drawn to that look, then you go ahead and use that, you know, use strobes to do your work.
But I will say, since watching your DVD, which is just awesome, it's just so damn good, I've changed the way I shoot a little bit.
Really?
And I showed you a little bit. I have. I showed you a little bit in my upcoming series, which is Film Noir, and I'm very excited about it. But we definitely started off with all the natural light elements, and just use light to kind of enhance that where it was necessary. And I feel like the end result feels a lot more true. So I'm really excited. Yeah, I mean, it really has changed my outlook on photography, and I'm very excited about my own work and moving forward after having seen your DVD, which
that's fun.
Yeah.
I think you know, most people, same with the cameras, as I mentioned, you get all hooked up in the equipment of things. When you should be more hooked up on what do I want to take pictures of, and when you know what that is, ask yourself, in what kind of light do I see this happening, and then you start shaping it from there. And I mean, there's always references for for what kind of light you like. So you just look at a bunch of pictures. Like you have these inspiration walls here.
That's why we do this.
It's amazing, right? So you can just say that, I like this kind of light, and how is that done? Or I like that kind of light, and you find your way, sort of thing, and you apply your aesthetic and use the tools you need to. To start with, oh my God, this guy uses 10 lights, and I need 10 lights to be a photographer. It's like, no.
It's not true. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of these are shot in completely natural light, you know, and they're in vogue. So,
right?
You know, like that's natural light in vogue.
Yeah. So content again is
content is king.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where you start.
Perfect. So we've talked a lot about, you know, finding the emotion, and you know, why do you feel that it's important to bring that emotion? I agree with you 100%. I just, you know, why is that emotion part of it important?
Wow. Because that's the essence of photography.
Short answer, done.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I discovered this the last few years, right? My initial attraction with photography was sort of done innately. Like, I just did it because it felt good. So just intuitively, right? You just find your way and you start taking these pictures, and it feels really good, but you don't know why. So you keep on taking these pictures and you build a body of work, but you still don't really know why. And then when you look back at your pictures and your career, and you start to realize that, you know, this is why I do what I do. It's because of who I am and my heritage and all that stuff. And then when you have established that platform, you start thinking, you know, now I know why I do what I do, and then how can I make it better? And I think the only way to make that visual part better is to add emotional content. So for me, that's why I think it's so important, because it digs deeper, it scratches underneath the surface of the picture, really. It can be beautiful, just visual, but there's some of these pictures here that truly has some emotional content, and I think we all can agree that those are the best ones on there.
Yeah.
Things that digs
this adds
deeper.
another level of connection.
Yeah. So, yeah, for me now, all the pictures I'm drawn to has that emotional content, and for me, I think it's what makes a picture good.
So you've identified that emotion is important in your photos. So I totally agree with you. I talk about that all the time on Phlearn. You've identified that that's what you want to bring to your photos more. So tell us how you are actually doing it. How are you bringing that emotion now after identifying its importance?
Good question. So that's where I'm at too. Well, you start with yourself, and then again asking how you feel about things, and you try to bring that emotion to it. So that's you, and then you got to connect with the person if you're photographing a person to get them to emote that emotion too. And I think that's a lifelong quest, really. If anyone that's watching this want to be inspired, they should look at the Richard Avedon PBS TV series, and they've cut it up and put it on YouTube, so it's in like 6-7 sequences, and it's so inspiring to see. He's the I think true master of extracting emotion from people. And I mean, we talked about this yesterday, where you mentioned that he had walked up to Winston Churchill and pulled this cigar out of his mouth to create an emotional response from your sitter. He also lied and said his taxi driver just drove over a dog for the Duke and Duchess, you know, that said that we love dogs. So he was amazing at both provoking emotion and extracting emotion. And I think that's probably the truest art of photography, you know, to be able to connect with the place or the subject in such a way that the viewer get an emotional response from it. And I've been very visual with all my work for so long that, as I said, what I want to do with land surveyors and these other pictures, that time off for me really helped me to realize that that's what I need to get better as a photographer, to sort of dig deeper both this way and then also extend that to the people I photograph and make them both come together. Yeah. So how to do it, I think, is different to answer your question, it's different for everyone. Avedon.
Pull cigars out of people's mouths.
Right? So you just got to find a way to connect, with the person and the place you're photographing. For that, I don't think there's a recipe.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know of one, right?
Maybe Tim Ferriss can give you one. He has it figured out.
Recipe for everything, right?
Yeah. You just have to be soulful about it and be curious about people. When I found this for myself, I started doing portraits on white, and I haven't put it on my website. I put it on this blog I started writing because I wanted to document this journey of me doing this, but I never found time to follow up on it. But anyhow, so I did this portraits on white, and it was just a chance for me to sit down and talk to people, and not just talk on the surface, but really offer up an emotional conversation, sort of where I shared some of my stories to try to get the people I photographed to open up and share their stories, and through that maybe could open that up and capture emotional content. So
perfect.
I'm trying. I'm learning.
Yeah.
Which is amazing, right? After 20 years in photography, I could say now it really starts for me. Now I'm at
the core of it.
Well, I know where the core is, and I'm heading for it.
It's in that general direction.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
So,
which is very interesting. I think that's one of the reasons why I personally have been able to stay in love with photography, is because there are so many levels to it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can master one level and discover a whole new world that you have no idea about it.
Exactly, and I'm so excited for myself and for what I have found sort of within that context of photography, because now it's open-ended, right?
The game changes completely again.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you were not a photographer, what would you be? What could you see yourself doing?
So I thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So I was a DJ. I got a second place in the Norwegian DJ Mixing Championship.
No way.
From 91.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was...
You could be like the next Dead Mouse.
No, I'm done with music. But, so that was one sense, right? I'm doing the visual in photography, and I made my first barrels of wine, and I'm in that process again. So I think the next one for me, if I choose to leave photography, would be then for the taste buds.
Really?
Yeah.
To become a winemaker?
I think so. I don't think I'll go there. It's an amazing hobby. But
yeah. Well, you're already in California.
Right? No, I do have now eight barrels sitting there. So
incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, let me know when you start your vineyard. I'll come do a wine tasting.
Yeah, no, I think it's fun, right? You gotta, I think again, input equals output. And I think it was Tom Clancy that said, when young writers ask him, how do I become a great writer? He says, go out there and experience life. Because if you don't experience things as a writer, you have nothing to write about. And it comes to us as photographers too, I think, in the same way. We gotta explore the senses, not just visual, but other ways too, so that we could feed ourselves with things that expresses itself through pictures and food and wine. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, I think. Same with music, and we talked about that earlier on with inspiration.
Yeah, I'm very big into music.
Yeah, and reading, so I think absorb as much of that as you can. So I think if I were to do something else, it would be for the taste buds.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a future blending your current passion with your future passion.
Yeah, or maybe when I want to settle down the traveling pace I have today, if I could do so in a place where I could make some good.
There we go.
Yeah.
Your wine labels will have the most beautiful photographs of
them.
Right? Seems to be all that sells wine nowadays, anyway.
Yeah, and
to me anyway, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I go with the one with the pretty label.
Right.
I'm totally that guy.
Labels is important.
Yeah, there we go. We want an Erik Almas wine label.
I'll show you something.
It's gonna be gorgeous. I can't wait. The wine's gonna suck, but I'll buy it every time.
I've done this for primarily for marketing, but also for my enjoyment of wine. Every year, the last 8 years now, I have sent out for my clients through the past year. It's not a marketing thing, and it's one of the best things I do, I think. As a thank you for people hiring me within the year, I sent out a thank you gift of 2 bottles of wine that I put my pictures on.
Your wine?
Well, so prior I've gone to winemakers and said, I love your wine. Would you mind if I buy 15 cases if I put my own pictures on the labels? So to my own crazy effort, and later, my assistant and studio manager sitting there, like scrubbing off old labels and putting new ones on. It's it's a task that happens once a year.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Something I didn't know about you, and probably very few people know about you.
Yeah.
Very cool. A man of many shades, Erik.
We got wine labels going on for years and years. So it's
I want to see them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Show it to you.
We have one more question, and then we're done, which is, this is from Anand, and this was from your Facebook page. Can you talk about ad photography from a client's perspective? What do you look for? How do you, as a photographer, approach the demands and bring your vision to the table?
Yeah. So I think we touched on this a little bit, yeah. Again, I'm sort of just grateful to be in a position where I get hired to do what I do. So the client's demands are never really to do something way out of the context of what I do. I try to listen a lot, to understand truly what they're trying to say and accomplish with their campaign, so that I don't come out there and do something that's not appropriate. So that's the first part. Understand what their goals are, what they want to say with the pictures, and then second part, how I bring myself to it and find a viewpoint that's honest, right, that we talked about. And then I get to apply my sensibilities and aesthetic. And it's kind of great, actually, this job for American Airlines, where they come in and say, okay, do the comp, and the art directors, not just being set on doing that one thing, said, when we've done this, why don't you just do whatever you want to do, how you see it.
Wow.
And then I get to explore, right, and do something that's different and less than the obvious, and maybe something that I'm curious about that's closer to the people, or whatever, that is mine more so than theirs. And this email I got back was, the art director loves this. So there's a way of sort of exploring and doing what everyone expects you to do, and then do something that's different, or the way you'd like to see it accomplished after. So that's how I try to infuse myself, more so than just the plain aesthetics, but also more the idea of it.
The idea, and coming from the thought and the background, and again, like the emotion. I think that's the theme for the day. It seems it's a great one.
I mean, it's because it's what's curious to me now, right? That's what I think is important. And sorry for making it all about that, but I mean, I'm happy to talk about gear too, but as you might have gotten by now, I think
we'll put a little gear list on the bottom so people can see what you shoot with. But
yeah, I think people, I mean, Terry Richardson, one of the it photographers at the moment, often shoots with a snapshot camera. What is that? $100?
Yeah.
So you can't say that you can't do extraordinary pictures with tiny vehicles. So again, it's content, and he has a obvious connection with his viewers and the way he shoots. So, and it's done very minimalistic. So it's not the tools, I think.
Yeah. Well,
I love your idea, though, of using the metadata to figure out
it's kind of interesting
what lens you should work with. I mean, that's a great trick.
I stumbled upon it by accident, but Erik, it's been awesome.
Thank
you so much
Appreciate
for coming.
It. Truly,
and,
always exciting.
I'm very excited about your work in the future. Bringing this new emotional content to it, and I can't wait to see, where it leads you on this journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Continue doing great work, because it's pushing me to get better, and I really appreciate that.
Of course, I'm so happy. And you too, with all the stuff that you do with Phlearn and sharing all this amazing post-processing techniques. I think it's a gem for people that have discovered it, truly. So,
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Guys, thanks so much for watching this great interview with Erik Almas. I hope you've learned a lot. He's just come out with a new DVD. I picked it up when I was in New York, and it's incredible. I watched it 3 times on the plane back home and over the next several days, and it's really made me a better photographer, which I didn't actually think could happen watching a DVD, but it really has. And Erik, first of all, just thanks for making the DVD. That's awesome. And
thank you. Thanks for having me here. It's been a great time. Always fun to hang out and chat photography.
Thanks, Erik.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. All right, go away now. Bye.
See you later.